then it's a cue for us to back off of it, conversation. Meaning, we still have their back. If something goes off, you're not going to lose me. But if this is so important to you, I'm going to back off. Even when we know this is not going to happen, they're going to fail, they're going to reject. It's important for the child to know that we have their back.
Maybe you're a parent who has realized that you have some unsettling patterns in your responses to your kids. Maybe you also wonder how you can get your kids to listen without raising your voice, or how we can build trust when you disagree on big issues. In today's episode, parenting coach Sapna Radhakrishnan shares valuable insights with us from her book, From Yelling to Zenning, and shows us how parents can improve communication and deepen their connections with their kids. So, if you would like to stop yelling, be calmer, and deepen your relationship with your kids, then you should keep listening.
Nice, Adnan. When we are talking as parents and we think about trying to communicate with our kids, a lot of times we don't realize how often we yell. And I think it's because we don't think that they hear us. So to help us feel a little bit normal, you actually wrote a book that was called From Yelling to Zenning. And I'm just curious, what are some of the top complaints that parents have about trying to communicate with their kids?
That's exactly what you said. They say they don't listen, they don't feel heard, the parent doesn't feel heard. They have to say multiple times before the child actually pays attention. These are some complaints that I hear from parents. But when we look back, we have trained the child to listen to us when we have increased our voice. So we train at our coaching, we train parents to do the opposite. And we give them this CALM acronym where C stands for collect yourself, like really get present in that moment. And then reach your child, like A stands for attune to what's happening around you. Is your child really into some game, or are they really involved talking to their friends or peers for some reason? Are they involved in their homework? Lower your voice, walk up to them and lower your voice instead of increasing. And then communicate. M is modulate your voice and then communicate with them.
It's funny you were talking about the videos, and I've watched adults play videos and they're just transfixed. So why would it be much different with the kids, right?
Yeah.
But your first reaction would be to talk as loud as you possibly could over the noise and not to bring it down to where they're paying attention. So that idea of calming things and quieting things is addictive to what we would do naturally, right?
Yeah, because when we don't feel heard, what is the natural instinct? To tune up that volume, right? To increase the volume so the other person hears us. But what if we did the opposite and they have to hear us because we are not activated? See, that's the first thing. What we normally do is we come up. I'll share the story with your audiences. So I came from work one day and my son was home. He was off from school and I had to go to work. And I come back and I see him playing with his electronics there. First of all, I was tired. It was evening. And my initial instinct was to go there and grab that remote, yell at him, send him to his room because he knows better not to be playing this long. But I paused. This was through the practice, which I do for myself and which I teach, is pause. First we pause, we collect ourselves. Because I was at the door. Let me ask you, Dory, at this moment, what would most of us do? I would yell. That is what I wanted to do. Yell, scream, grab, send him to offer some punishment and some kind of a thing. Or you can pivot. Pivot to staying calm, watching, like tuning to what is happening. Maybe we don't know what's happening, right? First, we need to attune. And then walk up. This is what I did. I wanted to yell, but at that moment, I calmed myself. I walked up to him and asked him, hey, aren't you supposed to be doing your homework at this time? How long have you been playing? And knowing my child, he doesn't lie. At least he doesn't need to lie. So he was like, oh, mom, I've been playing for an hour. Look at me. I have put the timer on. He had a timer next to him. And he said, I'm just finishing up the game right now. And then I will go do my homework. And I stood there while he finished his homework. And he's, okay, mom, I'm going to do my homework. Do you need any help in the kitchen? And I was like, because this whole thing could have gone another way. I would have yelled at him. He would have said, "You don't understand me." Door slams. Then I would have felt guilty for yelling at him. And then the patch up, the repair work is harder, takes longer because the damage is already done. So instead of pivoting back to my own old patterns of yelling, screaming, getting him to do things my way, we have to choose another way. And that is what I write about in my book and in my coaching courses.
You said the patterns. So a pattern would be reactive. What are some of the other patterns that parents typically fall back on?
Reactive or shutting down. Maybe you're not attuning to your child, you're just not talking, you would rather be quiet than yell. But the quiet is, are you shutting them down? Meaning, are you shutting them down in a way of punishing them? That is something you need to look into. Or what are other patterns? Maybe you're avoiding the conversation. Maybe you don't want to have big conversation with them. What are the patterns you have learned growing up? You have seen your parents do in their relationship, or something that we have done. We're so unconscious to this. We just rivet to that. Something happens in the environment and we just go there. Maybe it's yelling. Maybe we leave the house. We don't want to have this conversation. We cry. We feel crying is good, but if you're feeling helpless, that's another pattern. You're crying because you're helpless. You don't know how to fix this. You're frustrated. We get angry. These are all some patterns we rivet to. We constantly go back to. Now, what do we do with this? When we are feeling certain emotion, maybe it's fear, maybe it's helplessness, maybe it's frustration, maybe tired. What do we do with that? That's another pattern, right? You can scream at your child. You can shut down. You don't want to be involved. You can fall sick if you're constantly pushing down what you want to say and you're not able to say. You can fall sick because of that. You can have constant headaches because of that. These are all some patterns we are not aware of.
I never thought about the health end of that too, but that's so true. That stress of not being heard or not getting your point across in a way that isn't forceful, that kind of forced to have to yell just takes so much out of you anyway. It just would eat at your health.
Yeah. And then you feel guilty. That's another thing, another pattern, because you feel when we say something to them, our child might push back, then they might stop talking. And then we feel guilty. And then we become wishy-washy. These are all some patterns we are unaware of.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. When you talk to guests, sometimes your brain goes back to the mistakes that you make as a parent. I have made a ton.
We all have. We all have. And that's the normal way of parenting. There is no perfect parenting. And if we are good parents, we are going to mess up because we are trying. Nobody gave us this handbook, right, for parenting.
It can be changed every day anyway. But that's so true. There isn't any perfect form. And that's where your calm is so good, is because if you're assessing what's going on at that moment, it could be completely different. It could be the same scenario, but completely different feel than the day before, even if it happened 2 days in a row.
Yeah. So we have to ask the question, but what we do is we go back to our heads. We go back to the stories we tell ourselves, because let me take you back to that incident which I was just sharing. I was in my head. I was thinking he is purposely trying to annoy me. He is being so lazy. He does not listen. And if he keeps doing this, I'm going to be a bad parent and I'm losing at parenting. See, all this was going on in my head at that moment at the door. And if I spoil this one relationship that I have, which is so important to me, what kind of mother will I be? And what will people think of me? I'm a failure. So many things was going on in my head. All I had to do was collect myself and walk up to my child and be vulnerable and ask, "Hey, what's going on with you?" And that opened the door for him to be honest.
Imagine if you had yelled at him. He was all planned out. Like he had it down.
Yeah, he would have been scared of me, which I had done that before, coming back to how so many times I wish I could have done things differently, but if I had done that, I wouldn't be who I am today. But when my child was younger, about 3, I think we were potty training him. And at that moment, I had just started parenting. I was new at parenting. I didn't know what was happening. My child would not sleep through the night. I was tired. And potty training, I don't know how many of us have gone through this where you have to be constant vigilant. You have to have the constant, right? And for me, I thought, oh, you just tell them how to do and then they should be able to do it. My child was having constant accidents because he's a child. He's learning about his body. He's learning about his impulses, right? But I was so restless, so impatient and tired, changing his diapers over and over again. I had become, I had turned into this yelling monster because by the third time, if he had an accident, I would scream on top of my voice because I was exhausted. But that was not the excuse because I was the adult here. But my child had become very afraid because of my reaction. And one time, my house had become very quiet, and I realized my 3-year-old is too quiet. When I walked up, I noticed he was in the toilet taking care of himself because he was so afraid of my reaction. He was making it more messier than where it should be. That's another thing, but he had become so scared. So when he saw me standing at the door and asked him what's happening, the shock on his face, like he was terrified. My child should be coming to me when he needs help, not terrified. That was one of my big epiphany. That's the word, right? Yeah. When I was like, if I kept going on this route, I'm going to rift this relationship and he's going to be scared of me. I had to make that change. I had to look into why am I yelling? Yeah, it's one thing to be frustrated and I can ask for help. I can ask my spouse to come take a look at it, or I can just breathe for a moment. Why did I have to have him trained so fast or quickly? Or I had to look into those areas of my life.
Those are hard to look at too, because I think we start to give ourselves these impossible standards to live up to. And like you said, you were afraid that people would find out, that you'd be embarrassed. Maybe people would think that your child wasn't developing well enough into your bad mom, whatever the case might be. You put all these expectations on yourselves. And I think that happens so fast, so early. And that if you hold on to that, then like you said, there's this big tear in your relationship, tear, either way, where your kid doesn't want to come to you. They're afraid of you.
Yeah. And there, it's just going to spiral down from there, right? They're going to be scared. They might start lying. They might not come to us. And Gavarmote is one of my mentors, and he says, your parents should matter more than your peers, at least into their teenage years. And I would have pushed them more towards, and what do children know? They are all on the same level. They are developmentally all on the same level. They need an adult to guide. If they're going to each other for help, then this will be a whole lot of messier than it should be.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. And I think you're probably willing to share this. We both had conversations that are really tougher with our kids, especially as they get older and they start to do some of these things on their own. So, like when you have a 3-year-old, you're probably thinking this conversation is going to get forgotten, but you also see echoes of it as they get to be in their 14, 15, 20 plus. So you see those conversations coming back. So I know we talked about dating. Do you mind sharing that with the listening group?
Yeah, that was one of the hardest conversations. Now, let me tell you, by this time, my son was around 14, turning up 15. He wanted to date. And all his friends were dating. And for us, we felt developmentally he's not ready. He's still immature because it takes a lot to be in a relationship. They don't understand what dating is. They think it's holding hands. But I felt he was not ready for it yet. So we had to have that conversation. And to have that conversation, why, I would say, why, but this one's dating, this is happening, I will do this, back and forth, stressful conversation. But by then, I had created, it's that little drops of water, create that mighty ocean. I had built that relationship to have that conversation so that we could have that. Like he could come to me and be honest, I want to have this. And when I was saying no, he was pushing back and forth. It was not just I'm dating or he didn't lie to us or he didn't go behind our backs, or it was honest, vulnerable conversation that was frustrating for both of us. But we were in that because of the work I had put in, for myself and in the relationship. So it was based off of trust. Like, no matter how much we don't agree with each other, we still love each other. The love and connection was built off of which we were having this argument back. I had built that trust in him that no matter what happened, I'm not going to threaten our relationship. I'm not going to put our relationship at risk. That's what I'm talking about. We all have to build that connection drop by drop. That doesn't mean we are perfect. I still lose it. Even after years, I have to sometimes pick out my own book and read. I'm like, what did I do? It's not about perfection, but it's what do you have more of? Moments of connection or moments of disconnection?
Oh, that's beautiful. I think you're right. It takes so many drops that at the time it doesn't seem like they're really doing anything. You kind of wet floor. You don't realize that it's actually creating this path. And the older they get, I feel like the more serious the questions get. So if they can't come to you, like you said, if they're going to their peers for some of these answers, who knows what answers they're going to get. So being able to talk back and forth is really important.
Yes. And making sure your relationship's not going to be threatened. Like this is what most parents do. They threaten the relationship if the child does not submit to whatever the parent is asking. In that process, what happens is the child ends up disconnecting from themselves to please the parent. That is the basis of conscious parenting, is what we do in our coaching practice. That first the parent connects to themselves. In that, the child connects to themselves. They become whole. There are no parts of them that's not rejected. In that way, you have a bonded, connected relationship.
So do you feel like it sets up a sense of trust, obviously, but like this unconditional love that the kids can just rely on? I can go to my parent and they're going to accept me. Even if it's not something they agree with, I can still bring it to them.
Yeah, that's the core premise of this, right? I can go. I know I messed up or I did something. My car broke down. Let me take you back. I've written about this in the book too, Dory. When I think my child was just born, I was taking my son out on walk and I heard somebody on the phone. This grown-up person, this elderly person, she was talking to her daughter who had just crashed her car. And she was talking to her on the phone. Such kindness. Are you okay? It's okay. You don't have to be scared. I had brought up if something like that happened, I would be yelled at and can't you be careful? How many times have I told you not to do this? You still don't do this. So for me, this was like a big shift. That is what I want my child to get from me. No matter how much they've messed up, we can fix this together. We are there. I know I might be mad at the moment, but I'm here. I will be there. So sometimes my son, I know we are running out of time, but quickly I'll just tell you this. My son will question me. He'll say, what if I don't study and go homeless? I'll say, if you do, then I'll come sit next to you on the street and we both will figure out how to get you out of homelessness.
That's great because he knows he can come to you even in that moment.
I know it's not an ideal moment, but who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right?
Yeah. That's one of my questions I had for you. I've seen so many prompts, like download this prompt and it's like prompts to talk to your kids, ways to engage them. And I do believe that some of that works, but I also believe that if you haven't been building that, then you can't just drop a prompt and expect them to divulge everything that's on their heart. They're going to be like, what is this failed attempt, this crazy new approach my mom's trying to use to get me to talk, right? Do you have any advice for parents who maybe they don't have those drops lined up as a bridge? Maybe they're just starting to drop them. Like, how do you start to get those older kids talking to you?
Yeah, you can start wherever you want to start. Doesn't matter. The age doesn't matter. Important is we are vulnerable. We can tell the child, I want to change our relationship. I'm trying this new thing. I'm learning to be a better communicator. You can be open about this. And not immediately ask these questions, but you can start off. What do you think we can change about our relationship? Opening those doors. And those prompts are always helpful. But attuning to when you need to drop those prompts, right? Is my child walking in because he's stressed at school and then you go and use that prompt? Obviously, he or she is going to shut down. But attuning to my child. Are they coming to have their drink or their hot chocolate? And how is their energy? Looking at their skin tone, their eyes, their body language, all those things matter.
That's really important. Yeah, because there could be maybe they missed the bus and you had no idea. And you're saying, so what's the best thing about your day today, honey?
And they're going to look at us like we're crazy.
Exactly. Exactly. Another question that I had was when you're trying to talk about something you know that they really want to do, but it's something that you really don't think that they're ready for or that is in their best interest. Are there better strategies as far as getting to the heart of why they want to do that thing? I can give a personal example. I know when I was in college, I dated somebody that my parents were like, no. And their approach was, you can't, no, but and I love my parents to death, but that was the only thing they knew how to do.
Yeah.
So how do you approach some of these situations where you as the parent know this is actually a pretty big deal? It's not just one decision. This leads to more decisions. How do you go about that?
It's hard being a parent. We want to protect our child. We want to bubble wrap them. We feel as if our hearts are walking outside of our bodies. That's how parents feel. We want to keep them home and not let anything happen to them, right? That's what parents want to do. We want them to be happy. That's the most genuine, authentic thing that a parent wants for a child. But if you look at it, is a life like that happy? Life is ebb and flow of happiness, sadness, frustration, anger. It's all of parts. When we come with a genuine interest, and if the child is not open to it, then it's a cue for us to back off of it, conversation. Meaning, we still have their back. If something goes off, you're not going to lose me. But if this is so important to you, I'm going to back off. Even when we know this is not going to happen, they're going to fail, they're going to reject. It's important for the child to know that we have their back. Because it's going to happen. Something is going to happen. If you're a human being, we all are going to get frustrated. We all are going to get rejected at some point. We are going to have those heartbreaks. This is life.
So true. So true. As adults, you still didn't go so. So true. So give us like a brief summary of what is in your book and where we can find it.
Yeah, you can find my book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's like a story of my journey, the quest that I went on to reach the conscious parenting method, my NLP tools, and the mishaps that I did. I wish a young parent would pick up this book and say, I do this, and maybe change. There are tons of tools in the book, NLP tools that they can use, some conscious parenting myths that they can look into, and I give them strategies that they can use in the daily parenting.
That's awesome. And it's called From Yelling to Zenning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And NLP training, conscious parent training, and a little EFT?
Yeah.
Okay.
EFT I haven't used in the book. But there's another process called compassionate inquiry. I've spoken about that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. And then as far as them finding you to work with you, because I know you do coaching, how do they find you and what's the best spot to get a hold of you?
You can go to my website. It's sapnarad.com and download my freebie there. You can follow me on my Instagram or Facebook page. That is Sapna Rad Coaching. I give tools and tips every day. Even all the mistakes that I do with my teen is out there. So follow me out there. And thank you so much for having me, Dory. This is
Oh, thank you. I'm going to make you do one more question now before I get. Okay. My one last question is, what are 3 to 5 steps that parents can do as soon as they get off of the podcast to start to have this better relationship with their kids and stop yelling so much?
Grab my book first. If you can't do that, I would say take an honest inventory of what's not working. Rather than going back to those patterns of doing the same thing. You have heard this quote by Einstein. Insanity is doing the same thing and wanting a different result. So take an honest inventory of, okay, I'm trying to get my child to wake up every day so that they can be on school on time, but they're not. I'm getting frustrated and they're getting tardy. Instead of yelling at them and doing the same thing and hoping and wishing that they will wake up or they'll change, take a look at that. What's happening? How can I help my child? How can I be not be so frustrated? How can I be supportive of them? What can I do? That's something we need to look at that and break those patterns. So 1, 2, 3, get my book. If not, look at those areas of your life that's not working.
I love it. You had so much information, and I know that if somebody reached out, you could help them tremendously. So I just feel lucky and fortunate to have had this time with you today, and hopefully people got a ton out of this.
Thank you. Thank you, God.
Thank you for being here, Sapna.